In the year 2347, humanity stood on the brink of a new era. For centuries, Earth had been confined to its solar system, watching distant stars through telescopes and dreaming of what lay beyond. But dreams were no longer enough. Decades of research, sacrifice, and secrecy had culminated in the creation of something extraordinary, a battleship so massive and advanced that it defied imagination. Its name was Erebus. The ship stretched over 3 kilometers long, its sleek metallic hull shimmering like liquid silver under the sunlight. It wasn't just a machine, it was a statement. Equipped with weapons capable of tearing apart asteroids and engines that bent space-time itself, Erebus represented humanity's determination to carve out a place among the stars. Yet for all its power, it remained hidden from the world. Until now. On the morning of its launch, crowds gathered across the globe to witness history. Giant screens displayed live footage of the event as cameras panned over the colossal vessel resting atop a towering launch platform. Inside the command center, Captain Ilara Voss adjusted her uniform, feeling both pride and pressure weigh heavily on her shoulders. She was chosen not only for her tactical brilliance, but also because she believed deeply in humanity's potential. Today, she would lead Erebus into the unknown. Final checks complete, came the voice of Lieutenant Marcus Kane, the ship's chief engineer, over the intercom. His tone was calm, though his hands moved quickly across the control panel. Every system aboard Erebus had been tested countless times, yet nothing could fully prepare them for what lay ahead. All stations report green, announced Commander Ava Lynn, the science officer, her eyes scanning rows of data streaming across her screen. "We're ready, Captain." Ilara nodded, taking a deep breath. Her gaze shifted to the viewport, where Earth hung suspended against the blackness of space. This planet had been their cradle for millennia, but today marked the beginning of something greater. "Initiate countdown," she ordered, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. As the numbers ticked down, anticipation crackled through the air. Outside, thrusters roared to life, bathing the surrounding area in an intense orange glow. When the countdown reached 0, Erebus surged upward, breaking free of Earth's gravity with a thunderous roar. Millions watched in awe as the battleship pierced the atmosphere, leaving behind a trail of fire and hope. For the first time in human history, they weren't just reaching for the stars. They were stepping boldly into the galaxy. But humanity wasn't alone in the cosmos. Across light years, alien civilizations monitored the spectacle with varying degrees of curiosity and alarm. To some, Erebus was a marvel of engineering, proof that Earth had finally joined the galactic stage. To others, it was a threat, an unpredictable newcomer wielding technology far beyond what anyone expected. Emergency meetings were called, alliances reconsidered, and strategies redrawn. By the time Erebus entered orbit around Earth, preparing for its maiden voyage into deep space, whispers about humanity's arrival rippled through the galaxy. Some saw opportunity, others danger. One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The vastness of space was both beautiful and terrifying. For days after leaving Earth's orbit, Erebus drifted silently through the void, its crew adjusting to life aboard humanity's most powerful vessel. Captain Ilara Voss spent much of her time on the bridge, studying star charts and listening to reports from her officers. The ship's systems hummed steadily around her, a constant reminder of the incredible technology they commanded. Yet, despite their confidence, there was an unspoken tension in the air. They were no longer alone in the universe, and sooner or later, they would meet someone else. It happened sooner than anyone expected. On the 5th day of their journey, sensors picked up an anomaly, a small, fast-moving object approaching from a nearby asteroid field. At first, it seemed like debris, but as it drew closer, the shape became clearer. It was a ship, sleek and angular, with glowing blue markings etched into its surface. "Unknown contact detected," announced Lieutenant Marcus Kane, his fingers flying over the controls. "Size suggests it's a scout vessel." Captain Voss leaned forward in her chair. Hail them. Let's see if they're friendly. Commander Ava Lynn, seated at the communications console, adjusted frequencies and broadcasted a simple message in multiple languages stored in Erebus database. This is Captain Ilara Voss of the human battleship Erebus. We come in peace. Please respond. For several tense minutes, there was only silence. Then, static crackled over the speakers, followed by a series of strange clicks and whistles. The sound sent shivers down the spines of everyone on the bridge. They're responding, said Lynn, excitement lacing her voice. But I can't decipher it yet. Their language doesn't match anything in our records. Before further attempts could be made, the alien ship darted closer, circling Erebus like a predator sizing up its prey. Its movements were erratic, almost nervous. Suddenly, a beam of energy shot out from the craft, narrowly missing Erebus' hull. Shields up, barked Captain Voss, rising to her feet. The crew sprang into action, their training kicking in. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge as the massive ship braced for conflict. Return fire, asked Kane, his hand hovering over the weapons panel. No, Voss replied firmly. We don't know their intentions yet. Stand by for defensive maneuvers. The alien ship fired again, this time striking one of Erebus' sensor arrays. Sparks flew inside the engineering bay, but the damage was minor compared to what Erebus could unleash. Still, Captain Voss hesitated. This wasn't just about winning a fight. It was about making a statement. Humanity had entered the galaxy not as conquerors, but as explorers. Lynn, try hailing them again, she ordered. Used visual signals this time. Simple shapes and colors. Show them we mean no harm. Lynn complied, sending bursts of light in patterns designed to mimic universal symbols of peace. To everyone's relief, the alien ship slowed its attacks and began transmitting more complex signals. After hours of effort, Lynn managed to establish rudimentary communication. They call themselves the Zenari, Lynn explained, her face lighting up with triumph. No meant to scavenge derelict ships for resources. They thought we were hostile because of our size and armaments. Voss sighed, rubbing her temples. Let's make sure they understand we're not here to hurt them. Offer supplies if they need help. The gesture worked. The Zenari retreated cautiously, leaving behind coordinates to their home base as a sign of goodwill. Though the encounter ended peacefully, it left the crew shaken. As Erebus resumed its course, Captain Voss couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. If even scavengers reacted with fear, how would others respond when they learned of humanity's arrival? News traveled fast in the galaxy. Faster than light, faster than sound, faster even than humanity could have imagined. By the time Erebus had repaired the minor damage from its encounter with the Zenari and plotted a new course toward uncharted space, whispers of its existence had reached every corner of known civilization. Among those who heard these rumors was Emperor Daxar Calith, ruler of the sprawling Calith Empire, a dominion built on conquest, fear, and absolute control. Daxar sat upon his obsidian throne aboard the Obsidian Raft, his flagship, and a vessel nearly as imposing as Erebus. Unlike humanity's battleship, however, the Wrath was not designed for exploration or diplomacy. It was a weapon, pure and simple, a harbinger of destruction that struck terror into the hearts of all who saw it. When reports of Erebus reached him, Daxar leaned forward, his crimson eyes gleaming with intrigue. A primitive species dares to enter our domain. He mused aloud, his voice cold and calculating. How amusing. His advisors shifted uneasily. They knew better than to question their emperor's decisions, but this situation was unprecedented. Humanity wasn't supposed to be capable of building something like Erebus. Most civilizations took centuries to develop interstellar travel. Earth had seemingly done it overnight. Your Majesty, one advisor ventured cautiously, their technology appears advanced, perhaps beyond what we anticipated. Daxar waved a hand dismissively. Technology means nothing without experience. These humans are children playing with fire. Send a fleet to intercept them, and remind me why I keep you around if you doubt my judgment again." The advisor bowed deeply, sweat beading on his forehead. Moments later, orders were issued, and a squadron of Caliph warships set course for Erebus. But Daxter didn't rely solely on brute force. The Caliph were masters of psychological warfare, using holographic illusions and energy manipulation to disorient their enemies before striking. Meanwhile, aboard Erebus, strange things began happening. It started subtly. Crew members reported seeing shadowy figures moving through the corridors, only for them to vanish when approached. Others claimed to hear faint whispers echoing through the ship's ventilation systems. At first, Captain Ilara Voss dismissed these accounts as stress or fatigue. Space travel was isolating, after all, and tensions ran high among the crew. But then came the visions. One night, while patrolling the lower decks, Lieutenant Marcus Kane froze mid-step. Before him stretched an endless fleet of alien ships, their weapons trained directly at Erebus. He blinked, heart racing, and the scene disappeared as quickly as it had come. Convinced he was losing his mind, Kane kept quiet about the incident, until others began reporting similar hallucinations. Captain Voss called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. "This isn't natural," she said firmly, pacing back and forth in the briefing room. "Something, or someone, is messing with us." Commander Ava Lynn nodded, holding up a data pad filled with readings. "I've detected unusual energy fluctuations throughout the ship. They don't match any known phenomenon. Whatever's causing this is external." As panic began to spread among the crew, Lynn worked tirelessly to analyze the anomalies. She discovered traces of exotic particles that seemed to warp perception itself. "It's some kind of projection system," she concluded. "They're trying to confuse us, to make us doubt ourselves." Voss clenched her fists. "Whoever they are, they picked the wrong ship to mess with. Activate countermeasures. If they want to play games, we'll show them how humans fight back." Orders were given, and Erebus engineers scrambled to recalibrate the ship's sensors and shield systems. Slowly, the illusions began to fade, replaced by clarity. But just as the crew breathed a sigh of relief, alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple contacts incoming," shouted Kane, staring wide-eyed at his console. On the main viewport, sleek black ships emerged from the darkness, surrounding Erebus like predators closing in on their prey. The Caliph fleet materialized out of the void like shadows given form. Their ships were sleek and menacing, their hulls painted in deep blacks and blood reds that seemed to absorb the light around them. Each vessel bristled with weapons, and their movements were precise, calculated, a deadly dance designed to intimidate. On the bridge of Erebus, Captain Ilara Voss stood frozen for a split second as the reality of the situation sank in. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and completely surrounded. "Shields at maximum," she ordered sharply, breaking the stunned silence. "All hands to battle stations." The crew sprang into action, their training overriding fear. Lieutenant Marcus Kane's fingers flew across his console as he rerouted power to the ship's defenses. Commander Ava Lynn monitored the enemy fleet, her eyes darting between screens filled with data. "They're deploying some kind of gravity net," Lynn reported, her voice tense. "It's pulling us closer to their formation." Voss clenched her jaw. The Caliph weren't just attacking, they were trapping Erebus. If they succeeded, the battleship would be immobilized, vulnerable to destruction. "Marcus, divert auxiliary power to the engines. We need to break free before they tighten the noose." Kane nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked. "Trying, Captain, but it's like fighting against quicksand. The more we push, the harder it pulls." The first volley of enemy fire struck Erebus shields, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. Lights flickered, and consoles sparked as alarms blared across the bridge. Despite the chaos, Voss remained calm, her mind racing through options. "We can't win this fight conventionally," she muttered under her breath. Then her gaze shifted to the fold cannon, a weapon so powerful it could collapse localized space itself. It was experimental, unstable, and had never been tested in combat. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Ava, how long until the fold cannon is operational? Lynn hesitated, clearly uneasy about the idea. At least 10 minutes, and even then, firing it might destabilize our own systems. We don't have a choice, Voss said firmly. Prepare it. Marcus, keep those shields up as long as you can. Everyone else, focus on buying us time. As orders echoed through the ship, the crew scrambled to carry them out. Gunners returned fire, targeting the nearest Caliph vessels. Explosions lit up the darkness as plasma bolts tore through space, but the enemy fleet barely faltered. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. In the engineering bay, Malik Chen, the ship's resourceful chief engineer, worked feverishly to stabilize the fold cannon. Sparks flew around him as he rewired circuits and bypassed safety protocols. His hands moved with practiced precision, though his heart pounded in his chest. "Come on, baby," he whispered to himself. "Don't fail me now." Back on the bridge, the situation grew dire. The gravity net tightened, dragging Erebus closer to the center of the Caliph formation. Enemy ships swarmed like insects, their relentless assault chipping away at the battleship's defenses. "Shields are down to 30%, Kane shouted, his voice tinged with panic. "Hold steady," Voss commanded, her tone unwavering. She turned to Lynn. "Status on the fold cannon." "Almost ready," Lynn replied, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the final settings. Seconds felt like hours. Then, finally, a green light flashed on Lynn's console. "It's armed," she announced. Voss didn't hesitate. "Fire." The fold cannon roared to life, unleashing a pulse of energy that warped the fabric of space itself. The surrounding Caliph ships were caught in the blast, torn apart by the collapsing gravitational field. Dozens of vessels vanished in an instant, leaving behind only debris and silence. But the victory came at a cost. As the cannon discharged, Erebus shuddered violently, its systems overloaded. Warning lights flashed across every console, and smoke filled the corridors. "We've lost primary engines," Kane reported grimly. "Life support is failing in several sections." Captain Voss gripped the edge of her chair, staring at the carnage outside the viewport. Half the Caliph fleet was gone, but so was their ability to escape. Stranded in hostile territory, battered and broken, Erebus faced its greatest challenge yet. The aftermath of the fold cannon's devastating blast left Erebus drifting in space like a wounded beast. The once mighty battleship was now a shadow of its former self, its hull scorched and systems failing. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge, her face pale but resolute as she surveyed the damage reports flooding in from every corner of the ship. Half the crew had been injured, and critical systems, engines, life support, weapons, were either offline or operating at minimal capacity. "We can't stay here," Lieutenant Marcus Kane said grimly, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "If the Caliph come back, we're sitting ducks." Voss nodded, her mind racing. They needed shelter, repairs, and allies. Fast. But where could they turn? Humanity was still an unknown entity in this galaxy, and trust wouldn't come easily. "Commander Lynn," Voss said, turning to Ava Lynn at the science station. "Scan for nearby habitable zones or bases, anything that might offer refuge." Lynn's fingers danced over her console as she sifted through sensor data. After several agonizing minutes, her eyes widened. "Captain, there's something. A hidden asteroid field about 3 light-years away. Energy signatures suggest artificial structures inside. It could be a base." "It's our best shot," Voss decided. "Set a course. Use whatever power we have left to get us there." Hours later, Erebus limped into the asteroid field, its damaged engines sputtering with each maneuver. As they navigated deeper, the crew spotted signs of activity: camouflaged docking bays carved into the rocks, shielded against detection. A voice crackled over the comm system moments later. "This is Free Stars Alliance Outpost Delta 7. Identify yourselves or prepare to be destroyed. Voss stepped forward, speaking clearly into the microphone. This is Captain Ilara Voss of the human battleship Erebus. We seek refuge and assistance. We mean no harm. There was a long pause before the response came. Humans, you're far from home. Hold your position while we assess your situation. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as small scout ships emerged from the asteroids, circling Erebus cautiously. Finally, clearance was granted, and the battleship docked within one of the concealed hangars. As the airlock opened, Voss led a small delegation onto the outpost's platform, where they were greeted by a striking figure, Commander Sira Tillin, leader of the Free Stars Alliance. Her sharp green eyes studied the humans intently, and her expression was unreadable. "You've made quite the entrance," Tillin said dryly. "Word travels fast about your little skirmish with the Caliph. Impressive, but reckless." "We didn't ask for trouble," Voss replied evenly. "But we won't back down when it comes knocking." Tillin smirked faintly. Bold words for someone who just barely survived. "Still, you intrigue me. Tell me, why should we help you?" Before Voss could answer, alarms blared throughout the outpost. A scout reported incoming Caliph forces, apparently drawn by Erebus' earlier battle. Panic rippled through the rebels, but Tillin remained calm. "If you want our help," she said, turning back to Voss, "prove yourselves. Help us defend this base, and maybe we'll talk alliance." With no other options, Voss agreed. Despite their crippled state, Erebus still packed a punch. Using salvaged power cells, the crew managed to bring some of the ship's weapons online just in time for the Caliph attack. The battle was fierce. Rebel fighters darted between enemy ships, while Erebus unleashed targeted barrages from its remaining cannons. Though outnumbered, the combined efforts of humanity and the rebels held the line. When the dust settled, Tillin approached Voss again, this time with respect in her eyes. "You've earned your place here, for now," she said. "But the Caliph won't stop. If you want to survive, you'll need more than firepower. You'll need allies and purpose." Voss nodded, knowing this was only the beginning. For the first time, humanity had found a foothold in the galaxy. But alliances came with risks and sacrifices. The alliance between humanity and the Free Stars Alliance was fragile but necessary. Commander Sira Tillin wasted no time in laying out her proposal, a joint operation to strike at the heart of the Caliph Empire. The target was Erindor, a heavily fortified fortress world that served as a key stronghold for Emperor Daxar Caliph. Taking it down would deal a crippling blow to the Empire, and send a message to the galaxy that resistance was possible. Captain Ilara Voss listened intently as Tillin outlined the plan during a tense strategy meeting aboard the rebel outpost. Erindor is one of their most secure systems, Tillin explained, pointing to a holographic map floating above the table. It's surrounded by automated defense grids and patrolled by elite Caliph fleets. Breaking through won't be easy. Voss crossed her arms, her expression grim. "And if we fail?" "Then we're all dead, or worse," Tillin replied bluntly. "But if we succeed, we'll inspire others to rise against the Caliph. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about hope." Despite her reservations, Voss agreed. Humanity had entered the galaxy unprepared for war, but they couldn't afford to sit on the sidelines while others fought for freedom. Erebus would play a crucial role in the mission. Its damaged systems were slowly being repaired with scavenged parts, though it remained far from its former glory. The journey to Erindor was fraught with tension. Rebel ships flanked Erebus, forming a ragtag fleet united by desperation. As they approached the system, the scale of the challenge became clear. Massive orbital platforms bristling with weapons orbited the planet, and squadrons of Caliph fighters patrolled tirelessly. "This is suicide," muttered Lieutenant Marcus Kane, staring at the readouts on his console. "No," Voss corrected him firmly. "This is strategy. Stick to the plan." The rebels had devised a daring gambit, using stealth technology provided by their engineers. Erebus and a handful of cloaked rebel ships would slip past the outer defenses undetected. Once inside, they would disable the central command hub, creating chaos that the rest of the fleet could exploit. For hours, the infiltration went smoothly. The cloaking devices held, and the enemy didn't notice the intruders slipping into their midst. But betrayal struck when a double agent aboard one of the rebel ships transmitted their position to the Caliph. Alarms blared across the system as enemy forces mobilized, surrounding the infiltrators. "We've been compromised," shouted Commander Ava Lynn, her fingers flying over her console. "They know we're here." "Stay focused," Voss ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "Marcus, reroute all available power to the weapons. We're not going down without a fight." The battle erupted with ferocious intensity. Plasma bolts tore through space as Erebus unleashed salvos from its remaining cannons, taking out enemy fighters and orbital platforms. Rebel ships swarmed around them, providing covert fire, but losses mounted quickly. Amid the chaos, Voss made a bold decision. "Target the gravity well generator. If we can destroy it, we'll destabilize their entire defense network." Kane hesitated. "Captain, that's a suicide run. The shields won't hold long enough to get close." "I didn't ask for opinions. I gave an order," Voss snapped. "Do it." With engines straining and shields flickering, Erebus charged toward the generator. Enemy fire pounded the ship mercilessly, but the crew held their ground. At the last moment, Voss gave the command to fire everything they had left. The explosion was catastrophic, wiping out the generator and sending shockwaves rippling through the system. The Caliph forces faltered, giving the rebels the opening they needed to press their advantage. But victory came at a cost. Dozens of rebel ships were lost, and Erebus barely limped away, its hull scared and systems failing once again. As the survivors regrouped, Voss stared out at the wreckage, her heart heavy with guilt. The victory at Arinder was bittersweet. While the rebels celebrated their triumph, the cost weighed heavily on everyone, especially Captain Elara Voss. Dozens of ships had been lost, hundreds of lives sacrificed in the name of freedom. Among the rebels, whispers began to circulate about humanity's role in the battle. Some praised Erebus for its bravery and firepower. Others accused it of prioritizing survival over solidarity, pointing out how the battleship had retreated when things got dire. Back at the Free Stars Alliance outpost, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Commander Sira Tillin called a debriefing session, her sharp green eyes scanning the room as she addressed the gathered leaders. "We struck a blow against the Caliph," she said firmly, "but this war is far from over. Humanity has proven itself capable, but are they truly committed to our cause?" Voss stiffened in her seat, feeling the weight of judgment pressing down on her. She wanted to defend herself, to explain that every decision she made was for the greater good. But deep down, doubt gnawed at her. Had she done enough? Could she have saved more lives if she'd acted differently? After the meeting, Tillin approached Voss privately. "You've earned respect," she said bluntly, "but trust isn't given, it's earned. Prove to us you're willing to stand with us until the end." The doubts weren't just external. Aboard Erebus, cracks began to form within the crew. Morale plummeted as they repaired the battered ship, piecing together what little resources remained. Lieutenant Marcus Kane grew increasingly vocal about his frustrations. "We're not soldiers," he muttered during one heated discussion in the mess hall. "We're explorers. This isn't why we built Erebus. We're getting dragged into someone else's war." Commander Ava Lynn countered sharply. "And what would you have us do, Marcus? Turn tail and run back to Earth? The galaxy won't wait for us to catch up. If we want a place here, we have to fight for it." Their argument reflected the growing divide among the crew. Some agreed with Kane, longing for simpler days before battles and bloodshed. Others sided with Lynn, believing humanity had a responsibility to stand against tyranny, even if it meant paying the heavy price. Amid the turmoil, cryptic messages began appearing in Erebus systems. At first, they seemed like glitches, random strings of code flickering across consoles. But Dr. Lin noticed patterns in the data, fragments of an ancient language buried deep within the ship's core. "Captain," she said one evening, pulling Voss aside after hours of analysis, "there's something you need to see." In the dim glow of her workstation, Lynn displayed the decoded text. It spoke of humanity's forgotten past, a time when Earth's ancestors ruled vast portions of the galaxy before vanishing mysteriously. One phrase stood out: "The Nexus core holds the key." "What does it mean?" Voss asked, her brow furrowing. "I don't know yet," Lynn admitted. "But whoever built Erebus knew more than they told us. These secrets, they might explain why the Caliph fear us so much." Voss stared at the screen, her mind racing. Was humanity being used as pawns in a larger game, or were they destined to reclaim their lost legacy? As she left Lynn's lab, Voss couldn't shake the feeling that the answers lay somewhere beyond the stars, and that finding them would change everything. For now, though, there was no time to dwell. Emperor Daxar Caliph issued a chilling ultimatum: surrender Erebus or face annihilation. The message broadcast across the galaxy, leaving humanity with a stark choice: fight or flee. The discovery of the ancient text sent shockwaves through Erebus. Captain Ilara Voss called an emergency meeting with her senior staff, locking the doors to ensure privacy. On the main screen in the briefing room, Dr. Ava Lynn displayed fragments of the decoded message alongside images of strange symbols etched into Erebus core systems. "These aren't just random codes," Lynn explained, her voice tinged with both excitement and unease. "They're part of a larger archive, records left behind by humanity's ancestors. The Ancients, as they're referred to here, were once a dominant force in the galaxy. They created technologies so advanced that even the Caliph fear their remnants." Voss leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "And what about this Nexus core? What is it?" Lynn hesitated before answering. "From what I can piece together, the Nexus core is a device capable of reshaping reality itself. It could alter time, space, matter, anything. But it's also dangerous. If misused, it could destroy entire star systems, or worse." Lieutenant Marcus Kane frowned, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "So we're chasing some mythical artifact now. How do we even know it exists?" "It exists," Lynn replied firmly. "The coordinates embedded in the data lead to a location, a shattered Dyson sphere deep in uncharted space. That's where the Nexus core is hidden." Commander Sira Tulin, who had joined the meeting via hologram, interjected sharply. "You realize the risks, don't you? If the Caliph find out you're hunting the core, they'll stop at nothing to claim it for themselves." "I'm aware of the risks," Voss said, her tone resolute. "But if the core holds the key to ending this war, or understanding our place in the galaxy, we have no choice. We'll go after it." The journey to the Dyson sphere was perilous. The region of space surrounding it was unstable, riddled with gravitational anomalies and radiation storms. As Erebus approached, the ship's sensors detected faint energy signatures emanating from within the ruins. Massive chunks of the sphere floated aimlessly, their surfaces scarred by eons of decay. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Kane, staring at the eerie sight on the viewport. "Stay focused," Voss ordered. "We're not here to sightsee." Inside the sphere, time and space seemed distorted. Hallways of alien design twisted impossibly, leading nowhere or looping back on themselves. Strange artifacts glowed faintly in the darkness, humming with power. The crew split into teams to explore the ruins, guided by Lynn's analysis of the ancient text. It wasn't long before they encountered resistance. Automated defense systems activated, firing beams of energy that warped perception and disoriented anyone caught in their path. Crew members reported seeing visions, phantom figures walking beside them, whispers echoing in languages they couldn't understand. "This isn't just security," Lynn said, examining one of the devices. "It's psychological warfare. The Ancients didn't want intruders messing with their tech." Despite the dangers, the team pressed on. Deep within the sphere, they found it. The Nexus core, Suspended in a chamber of shimmering light, the artifact pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that shifted and changed as if alive. "We found it," Voss whispered, awe evident in her voice. But their triumph was short-lived. Alarms blared as enemy ships appeared outside the sphere. The Caliph had followed them. "They must have tracked us," Kane growled, checking his console. Voss clenched her fists. "We can't let them take the core. Prepare for evacuation and arm yourselves. This fight isn't over yet." As chaos erupted around them, humanity stood face to face with its forgotten past and the future it might shape. The chamber housing the Nexus core was bathed in an ethereal glow, its pulsating energy casting eerie shadows across the walls. Captain Ilara Voss stood at the edge of the platform, her eyes fixed on the artifact that could reshape reality itself. Behind her, the crew prepared for battle, weapons drawn, hearts pounding. Outside, the Caliph fleet closed in, their ships tearing through the remnants of the Dyson sphere like predators hunting prey. "Captain," Lieutenant Marcus Kane called out urgently, "enemy forces are breaching the outer perimeter. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they're inside." Voss didn't turn around. Her mind raced as she weighed their options. They couldn't let the Caliph claim the Nexus core, but neither could they leave it behind. The artifact was too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands. "Ava," she said sharply, turning to Commander Ava Lynn, "is there any way to disable the core? Render it unusable?" Lynn hesitated, her expression grim. "We could overload it, but doing so would destabilize this entire structure. Everyone here, including us, would be caught in the blast." Voss clenched her jaw. Sacrificing Erebus and her crew wasn't part of the plan, but sometimes survival came second to duty. Still, she needed more time to decide. "Hold them off as long as you can," she ordered Kane. "Buy me some time to think." Moments later, the first wave of Caliph soldiers stormed into the chamber. Clad in sleek black armor and wielding weapons that crackled with energy, they moved with precision, their crimson visors glowing ominously. Leading them was none other than Emperor Daxar Caliph himself, or what remained of him. His body was no longer fully organic. Cybernetic enhancements covered half his form, his mechanical limbs glinting menacingly in the light. His voice echoed unnaturally as he addressed Voss. "You've meddled in matters beyond your comprehension, human," Daxar sneered, raising a clawed hand toward the Nexus core. "This power belongs to the strong, and you are weak." Voss stepped forward, her blaster trained on him. "You underestimate us, Daxar. Humanity doesn't back down when faced with monsters." With a flick of his wrist, Daxar signaled his troops to attack. Chaos erupted as plasma bolts flew across the chamber, lighting up the darkness. The crew of Erebus fought valiantly, using every trick they'd learned in their battles against the Caliph. But the enemy outnumbered them, and reinforcements kept pouring in. Amid the chaos, Voss noticed something strange about Daxar. He wasn't just enhanced, he was merging with ancient technology embedded in his cybernetics. Sparks of blue energy arced between his mechanical parts, and his movements grew faster, more fluid. "He's trying to interface with the core," Lynn shouted, realizing the danger. "If he succeeds, he'll become unstoppable." Voss made a split-second decision. "Marcus, focus all remaining power on the fold cannon. Aim it directly at the core." Kane stared at her in disbelief. "Captain, that'll destroy everything, including us." "I know," Voss replied grimly. "But if we don't stop him now, nothing else will matter." As Kane scrambled to activate the cannon, Voss confronted Daxar one last time. The Emperor laughed maniacally, his body now almost entirely consumed by the alien tech. "You fools," he spat. "Even in death, I will reign supreme." Before he could complete the connection, the fold cannon fired. A deafening roar filled the chamber as the weapon unleashed its devastating pulse, collapsing space around the Nexus core. The resulting explosion tore through the Dyson sphere, obliterating everything in its path. including Daxar and his forces. When the dust settled, silence reigned. Outside the ruins, the surviving rebel ships watched in stunned awe as the shattered remains of the sphere drifted apart. Erebus was gone, but its sacrifice had saved the galaxy from tyranny. The galaxy mourned the loss of Erebus, but its legacy burned brighter than ever. News of the battleship's final stand spread like wildfire, carried by rebel scouts and whispered among star systems oppressed by the Caliph Empire. The destruction of Emperor Daxar Caliph and his flagship marked a turning point, a moment when hope ignited in the hearts of those who had long believed resistance was futile. For Commander Siretilin and the Free Stars Alliance, the victory came at great cost. Dozens of ships were lost in the battle, and many brave souls perished alongside humanity's greatest vessel. Yet, as she stood on the bridge of her own ship, gazing out at the shattered remnants of the Dyson sphere, Tilin felt a rare sense of pride. Humanity had proven itself not just as explorers or warriors, but as allies willing to sacrifice everything for a better future. They gave us more than their lives, Tilin said quietly to her second-in-command. They gave us courage. Back on Earth, news of Erebus' fate reached the planet slowly, filtered through distant relays and fragmented transmissions. For weeks, humanity held its breath, unsure whether their first step into the stars had ended in tragedy or triumph. When confirmation finally arrived, the world erupted in both grief and celebration. Captain Ilara Voss became a symbol of heroism, her name etched into history books alongside legends of old. But Voss herself was gone, along with most of her crew. Only a handful survived, rescued by rebel forces moments before the fold cannon's blast consumed the chamber. Among them was Lieutenant Marcus Kane, whose survival was met with mixed emotions. Some hailed him as a hero, others saw him as a reminder of what they'd lost. In the months that followed, humanity began to rebuild, not just physically, but spiritually. Engineers studied salvaged Caliph tech, recovered from Erinder, while scientists pored over fragments of ancient artifacts brought back by survivors. Slowly, Earth prepared itself for another leap into the unknown. Commander Ava Lynn, now one of the few remaining voices of authority from Erebus, took charge of a new initiative, Project Legacy. Its goal was simple yet ambitious, to uncover humanity's forgotten past and reclaim their place among the stars. We didn't come this far to turn back, Lynn declared during a global broadcast. The ancients left us clues, warnings, and tools. It's up to us to use them wisely. As part of the project, Lynn activated a beacon hidden within Erebus' original design, a device capable of broadcasting Earth's location across the galaxy. The signal traveled silently through space, carrying a message of peace and unity. Whether it would attract friends or foes remained uncertain, but humanity was ready to face whatever came next. Meanwhile, whispers of rebellion stirred across the Caliph Empire. Without Daxar's iron grip, cracks began to form in its foundation. Former slaves rose against their oppressors, inspired by tales of Erebus and its crew. In secret meetings aboard smugglers' vessels and hidden bases, leaders vowed to honor the sacrifices made by humanity. And so, the galaxy entered a new era, one shaped by courage, resilience, and the enduring spirit of exploration. High above Earth, the battered remnants of Erebus drifted silently in orbit, its hull scared but unbroken. Though no longer operational, it served as a monument to humanity's journey, a testament to how far they'd come and how much farther they still had to go.